Amelia? Hi. You're
Hi,
muted.
Dennis.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm good, thanks. How are you? It's nice to meet you too.
Okay, thank you. I just got a text from Jeff Mangles, one of the commissioners. They lost power. He's going to try to call in.
Oh no. Okay, good. I'll look out for that, and then I can, if for whatever reason, I can just promote him too. But
Okay.
I'm not in Norwalk right now. Is it storming? Is that why he lost power?
No, it's fine. No rain.
Huh.
Use it, but no rain. It's amazing. You're not in Norwalk.
Nope. Commute, but I'm going against traffic, so it's not too bad.
That's good.
Hi, Dennis. I was just wondering if we have a quorum this evening.
I hope so.
It's Jeff. I know Alan might not make it.
He lost power. He's going to try to call in.
Who's that? Alan?
Jeff Mangles.
Oh, I see.
So far, it's you and I. We need 5, right, John?
Chris is here. Chris McDonald.
Okay.
This is not good. We're down to the faithful.
Here's Chris.
Okay. It's Jeff.
You made it, Jeff.
Jeff Stedman is going to be running a little late.
Okay.
Matt's here. Matt Gifford.
Yeah, good evening.
We need one more person, correct?
John Crespo. He's here. Good.
All right.
I think Lori's absent.
Yes.
Alan.
Another minute. Okay, I think we have a quorum. Let's start the meeting. If we all could stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag,
America,
United States of America, and to
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. I'd like to have a moment of silence for John Romano. May you rest in peace.
Amen to that.
Yes.
That's sad. 2 weeks. Very sad.
Very sad. Very sad. Okay. Do we have someone from Telesco?
From Amanda, you recording the session? Amelia,
Yep,
I'm
it's
sorry,
being-
Amanda. Amelia, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I get a lot. So the meeting's being recorded and I do see, I think Telesco's here on as recording secretary. So I think we're all set.
Okay. Why don't we just, everyone, all the commissioners and everyone give their name so she has it for the record. Dennis Santella, Chairman.
John Pinto, Chair Application Review.
Next.
Matt Gifford, Commissioner.
John Crespo, Commissioner.
And Jeff Mangles said we can't hear him. So that's Jeff Mangles, Commissioner.
Okay. We see you. Can you hear us? Can
Yes.
you hear us, Jeff?
And Joe Schnurline, Water Quality Committee.
Chris, did you check in?
You're
I didn't unmute myself. Chris McDonald in attendance.
Who else? Chris? John Crispo?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Do we typically?
And we have Steve Bartish from Shellfish Commission.
Yep. And Steve Bartish, yes. Is that it? Everyone else is a supporter of the evening. Okay. So our roll call is okay. We're done, I assume. Okay. John, I'll turn it over to you, the Application Review Committee.
Okay, thank you. In the interest of time, we will start with the application from 3 Park Street, which is a CAM application. Applicant is DPC Capital Management, and the applicant proposes to essentially maintain the Stiles Curtis House at that location. They plan to put, I guess, 2 apartments will be added to the 2nd floor of that the current facility. And in addition, the applicant proposes to construct 2 new rear housing additions comprised of 9 1- and 2-bedroom units. With concern to the Harbor Management Commission, they do plan to maintain stormwater runoff. It will be captured using an on-site retention system. And the applicant is seeking an amendment change to the zoning. Is that correct? Attorney Suchi.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Pinto, Dr. Pinto. First, my condolences to all of you for the loss of your colleague and friend. And John was a real champion of all things Norwalk, and he will be sorely missed. So my sympathies go out to all of you. As Dr. Pinto correctly explained, the project is at 3 Park Street. There is an existing 3,600 square foot 1830 vintage dwelling in the Italian design. It's the Stiles Curtis House. That structure is to remain. The first floor would be maintained as office space with 2 apartments upstairs. And then the proposal is to construct 2 additions at the rear of the Stiles Curtis House connecting to it. One is like a carriage house design, and another is a stable type design to accommodate an additional 8 or 9 apartments in those 2 structures, bringing the total on the site to 10. On the line tonight also is Wayne Devanzo. He's the project civil engineer, and I suspect you may want to hear from him. But the text amendment is rather simple. Currently, there is a 30,000 square foot lot area requirement in order to take advantage of various options. Special permit in the East Avenue Village District, where the property is located. We're seeking to lower that minimum from 30 to 20,000, since this parcel is just over 20,000, and it would allow us some flexibility in zoning to accommodate what we'd like to achieve on the site. There is also a special permit application that accompanies not only the CAM, but the text amendment. The proposal has all of the required stormwater retention and whether it's volume or runoff water quality. But I'd like Wayne Devanzo, if you would mind, for him to just briefly describe that to you.
Yes, thank you, Liz. Good evening, Wayne Devanzo, Fairfield County Engineering. The stormwater management primarily consists of 128 linear feet of 48-inch deep concrete galleries. It's a fairly substantial retention system. It will collect the majority of the asphalt driveway and parking area, and it's routed to those concrete galleries and via a coarse particle separator, and it collectively will reduce the net runoff from the property for the 2 through 100-year storms. It also mitigates not only the rate, but also the volume for each of those storms. So it's a rather substantial system, and will recharge the groundwater more than amply, and again, reduce the net runoff. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
You plan to use city sewers as a means of effluent runoff? Or no?
No, the stormwater, the rain runoff is self-contained on the property.
Oh, self-contained and percolate into the
and percolates back into the
soil.
ground, correct, right?
But there is city sewer to the site.
Right.
Right, yeah.
And you're well out of the 100-year floodplain. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
This property is just at the edge of the coastal area management zone.
Right.
I don't think it could be that much higher off the Norwalk River than any others, but nonetheless, we're required to appear before you and seek your approval so we can move forward through the zoning process.
Any commissioners have any discussion on the proposal?
What is the amendment to the zoning?
It's to reduce the minimum lot size. Right now, there's a 30,000 square foot lot size requirement as part of the East Avenue Village District for special permits for historic structures. We're seeking to reduce that down to 20,000 since this parcel is just over 20,000. The 30,000 came about approximately 3 years ago with a parcel on East Wall Street. And it was just a number selected since that parcel was just over 30,000. But I think as other properties on East Avenue that have historic structures such as this and want to maintain those historic structures, contemplate additional buildings on those lots, the 30,000 eliminates the ability of some parcel owners, such as my clients, to avail themselves of the historic district relaxation of regulations. So it's really just reducing it from 30 to 20.
Thank you, understand it.
What other impact would it have on subsequent properties?
As we can tell right now, there's approximately 8 to 10 other parcels that are just over 20,000 that might be able to avail themselves of the flexibility built into the regulation if the 20,000 square foot limitation is enacted by the regulations, by the commission. So it's not a wholesale amendment as we're proposing. We're just looking to move it down to 20. So there might be 8 to 10 more properties that could potentially have some additional structures constructed on their properties or additions to those buildings that exist. But one of the limiting factors is there must be a historic structure that's either on the city's inventory, the national or the state registry, in order to avail themselves of the regulations in the East Avenue Village District for those relaxation of regulations. Not all of them have a historic structure.
And this regulation is just for the East Ave Village District?
It's just for the East Avenue Village District. That's correct. The amendment.
Well, since the commission is mostly concerned with stormwater runoff and drainage into Norwalk Harbor and protecting Norwalk Harbor, this change would not have any impact on any requirements that are involving water runoff, drainage, et cetera, in Norwalk Harbor. Don't know myself. That amendment change would not have any effect on one's ability to maintain control over stormwater runoff and where it's going to be distributed and how it's going to be distributed. That will not affect that at all.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Do you have any other questions for me or Mr. Devanzo? We'd be happy to answer them.
Well, as I said, the commission is mostly concerned with stormwater runoff. I'd like to make a proposal that the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission has reviewed this proposal and make a recommendation that it is consistent with the harbor management plan with regard to water runoff and consistency with the plan, and that the applicant maintains a record for that matter of stormwater runoff as far as not a record, but a maintenance program that might be put in place at that location. And I think that is about it with regard to some of our major comments that we have, that we do support, certainly stormwater runoff in protecting Norwalk Harbor, and that we again support the runoff reduction and low impact development pursuant to the city stormwater management requirements. So
we have to make a statement one way or the other about the zoning change, or do we just say we have no objection?
We have, well, that's basically up to the, we have no objection and no comment. I guess for the zoning change, that would be left up to the zoning commission, I would imagine.
Sure. Well, that's, yeah, I would, no comment seems appropriate, yes.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, John, with
All right.
Meaning
second
the wastewater is really our biggest concern on something like this.
And
I second the motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Ms. Suchi, Attorney Suchi, thank you very much. And
Thank you, Dr. Pinto,
Wayne,
members of the commission. Have a nice evening.
thank you very much.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is, again, it's an amendment change. It's an emergency service amendment change. I think this was sent to me by Brian, who was the planning and zoning, or Amelia. Did you send this?
I don't think that was from me. I think it was from Brian Baker.
Brian Baker. Okay. The zoning regulation amendment, and what they plan to do, and this is the terminology, and I'll just read it and then quickly make a statement on that. The emergency services communication antennas are permitted as an accessory use when located on an existing public utility structure and may extend above the existing structure by no more than 25 feet. In addition, the color of the utility structure shall, and they have some nomenclature there, be incorporated into the design of the antenna, and any equipment structures shall meet building setbacks and be effectively screened from adjacent properties. It really has, as far as I'm concerned, no really impact that I could see as far as water quality and harbor management. And I would like to put forth a proposal that we've reviewed this and basically have no comment with regard to the amendment change regarding the height of the communication antenna.
Is this typical for all properties in Norwalk?
I'm not sure about that. As I said, I don't know what was sent to me was just that they plan to change the height requirement, and that the structure may extend above the existing structure, I guess, by no more than 25 feet. Now, whether that is going to affect areas in and around the harbor, I'm not quite sure.
Well, I'm wondering if there's an antenna that's right on the shoreline.
Well, that's a good question, Dennis. I don't know. Oh, in that case, this would be an emergency service, I guess, antenna, and I think any exposure and access to that antenna by emergency services probably would be beneficial. So, I don't know. But that's all the information that I received.
That's fine. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
So is this only an emergency service antenna? So if I wanted to put in an antenna for whatever reason, I would not be able to do that. And I think, Dennis, that's what you're talking about. We don't want a whole bunch of.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
I don't have that information with regard to that, but that was there is a document on the city's website that addresses, I guess, all the issues that are faced there. But that was the only one that they asked us to address, the adjustment of the height of an antenna to may extend above the existing structure by no more than 25 feet. So how that would affect, if it's an antenna that is located on the shoreline, I'm not exactly sure. Or if somebody wants to put an antenna around the shoreline area. If it's up to the commission, I can contact Brian to see if there's any more information he can provide us on that.
Is that an
Is there a major concern?
Decrease?
I'm sorry?
Do we know if that's an increase or decrease in height, or
supposedly it's above I guess it's an increase in height above an existing structure.
John, what is this commission supposed to do? What are they asking us?
That's just to either yay or nay, just to make comment on their proposed amendment. Yeah, so sometimes we get, because I'm not exactly sure whether this is dealing with antenna that would supposedly be in a coastal management zone. I'm not quite sure whether they do send us from time to time applications and amendments on these various applications to review.
Is there a time frame required?
I I don't know. I didn't get that from Brian, but I can
I
certainly
mean,
find out.
we could request more information if we need to.
Okay, if that's
The time requirements.
Mr. Blank, you have a comment? I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm not, I don't have a role in this application. I was on the planning and zoning meeting, and the information on it is on the city's website on the planning and zoning link. This is for an antenna on the water tower in Rowayton, the South Norwalk water tower. And I know Commissioner Langalis asked if it would be visible from the water, and it will be visible from the harbor on top of the water tower there. It's just for EMS. But you can see the documents on the city's website on the planning and zoning tab.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So the opinion of the commission, should I contact Brian for additional information on that?
I think just
I'm a
for a
little confused.
clarification
Is
point
this-
on that, John.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I'm a little confused, John. Is this specifically for that particular property that was mentioned on the water tower?
That's a good question. That's a good question, Dennis. I don't know. If I'm just going by what Attorney
Well,
Schiff.
it doesn't say that.
No. I will contact Brian to see if that's the only issue with regard to, as he pointed out, that an antenna located on a water tower in Rowayton. And again, if that's part of our jurisdiction as well, that would be interesting. I don't know if it's that's an area that's located in a 5 Mile river, which we do not have jurisdiction over.
I believe that water tower is by Wilson Cove. That's where you would see it from?
Yeah, I don't know where the location of that is. So, where the water tower is. All right, I'll contact Brian and see what is involved. If anything, does any commissioner have any comment with regard to the positioning of that antenna? If it is on that water tower and locating 20 and extending 25 feet above the current structure.
No.
Any issues with that?
I wouldn't have any objection.
All right, well, I'll inquire, and if that's the case, then I'll convey that information to him that we would either have no comment or that we have no objection to that amendment being made.
Okay.
Right.
Joe, did you have your hand up?
Joe, you're muted.
Yeah, it's not a, am I being heard now?
Yes.
Okay. John, just a thought on that. Some of you know I had the luxury of living next to a water tower, and I know it takes a few lightning strikes every year. If you have an emergency service antenna, I would have something else for redundancy, if you know what I'm thinking here.
Well, you like to share that?
Well, I think it should be passed on to them, because not many of the people that make the decisions to put these towers in live next to water tanks. So they don't, they don't understand, you know, how these things can literally attract lightning. And I'm glad it hits the water tower, not my house.
Oh. All right, well, I'll approach him on that one subject. Okay. Thanks for that information. Okay. The third application is at 26 Sable Street in Norwalk, Connecticut. It's a pre-application COP by Margaret and Jeremiah. I believe the man's name is Schnee. The applicants propose to retain a pre-1995 dock configuration comprised of a 4 foot by 2 foot by 38 foot wood pier with a 40-inch railing guard and a 2 foot by 8 by 16 wood gangway with a 40-inch railing guard, again with a floating with a 9 by 9 foot by 1 inch floating floating dock, and modify the floating dock identified above by install. They want to install actually want to keep that floating dock and install an 18-inch float stops and skids to the water, and they want to add a water ladder, 2 water access ladders to the facility, to the the facility. And then also the applicant proposes to replace the existing, I guess, restraining system consisting of 2 braced ropes and a bottom anchor with 2-inch galvanized restrained pipes. And then lastly, the applicant proposes to remove, they have two driftwood timbers currently resting in the tidal wetlands above the mean high water mark. And the construction is planned both on land and using a small workboat during appropriate tides. I'm not sure, is the applicant here that would like to say a few words about that? Or their agent? No one here? I had an issue with regard to that particular application because they did mention a pre-floating dock. I don't know whether they had received a permit for that, the pre-1995 floating dock. That I didn't see that on the application. That was one of the questions I was going to ask the applicant.
Good point, John.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the other amenities that they plan, this is usually typical of what we reviewed. I don't know if Shellfish also had a chance to review that particular permit.
We have not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I will send that to you and have you review that. Then I'll seek the applicants for further information on that application. All right. Any other comments on that we'd like to add or?
Pretty skinny tide area too, John.
It is. It's sitting on the coastal resources, which I think the Shellfish Commission should definitely review. But they do plan to put, I guess, float stops on there as well as a little bit more securing that to the land surface. But it does rest on the bottom in its current location.
So I guess in that regard, it'd be an improvement to go from an old dock that rests on the bottom to having skids, having float stops.
Well, that's basically it. It's basically keeping the same construct, but keeping the dock on top of float skids. That's correct. Yeah. All right, I will seek more information on that from the applicant. The next application is at 20, I guess, Loudon's Avenue in Norwalk. It's a CAM application. And what the applicant proposes to do is to demolish an existing single-family dwelling and create a private road and subdivide the property and build a single-family residence on each lot. The property abuts Norwalk Harbor and is separate from the shoreline with separated with seawalls along the northern, eastern, and southern boundaries. The applicant, again, stormwater runoff from the roof and yard drainage will be maintained by 2 subsurface collection chambers, 1 in each lot. And prior to infiltration into the underlying soil area. They talk about proper measures that will be in place for minimizing construction debris and soil erosion from entering Norwalk Harbor. And I'm not sure who is here from that application.
Chairman, Commissioners, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC on behalf of offices at 10 Saskell Hill Road in Fairfield. Here on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, thank you.
Just to take you kind of briefly through it, because it's rather straightforward. I don't know if I have the ability to share the plans.
Amelia can provide that for you.
All right, Chris, are you able to share now?
Let's, it doesn't seem to allow me to do it. I don't know if everybody received it. Did everybody receive a copy of the plan?
Not that application. No, it didn't go out, but I did look at that myself, did review it, but didn't have a chance to send that out in bulk.
Okay.
I did see the property and it's
right. Well, I guess I can describe it because for some reason it's not allowing me to share. But yeah, it's right now we've proposed a subdivision application. It's a straight subdivision for 2 lots. I guess the element that is a little bit different than what would just be a straight lot split is that there's a proposed road private road that will come off of Lowndes Avenue and access these two lots. There's an existing seawall there. It's actually seems to have been there since 1934 at least. I actually was researching it with Deep and looking at it. It's a very old seawall. We're proposing to do nothing with it. Everything is just kind of happening on the land. We showed on the plans all the drainage for the road, the private road, and as Mr. Pinto just described, and how we're treating it. That was done in conjunction with the city engineer in developing those plans. On the plans, we showed a single family dwelling. That was something that engineering asked us to show just to demonstrate that we could handle the road, but also potential dwellings there. So we showed that. I will say in the future, right now we're going for the subdivision application and for the CAM application. It is possible the house would change. And if that does happen, we would be back before you for a different CAM application. And because we would have to go through coastal again and come back through the process. Right now, it's just the subdivision application, which includes this private road and all the necessary drainage systems and the CAM that's associated with that. But really changing almost, essentially nothing with regards to the harbor. Again, that seawall is going to remain. It covers about 3 sides of the property. If anything, we're knocking down an existing house that's really close to Lowndes Avenue that will hopefully open up the viewscape for residents that are walking down along the public way. But that's essentially the extent of what's being proposed at this moment.
At first purview on that application, I saw what you plan to do is, the sort of the subdivision. Are you within a floodplain area as far as the any FEMA rules and regulations regarding placement of that facility near the?
Yes, I think we are. Trying to look at, we're in the AE flood zone and the VE flood zone.
And you're not near the building and construction would not be any particular wetlands or anything, or tidal wetlands.
No, we're staying far away from that. And again, it's established seawall, so we're just going to leave it. So I mean, we're not, and we're gonna, and I think this is detailed in our CAM report. Bill Kenny and Associates prepared our CAM report. We're going to have the necessary controls, silt fencing running along that seawall just to make sure, during the course of construction that we won't impact anything.
Right. At the review, I did see the proper treatment that you plan to do as far as best management practices to avoid any kind of debris runoff into the harbor, which I thought was, certainly meets certainly our approval from that standpoint.
Right. Jeff, do you have a question?
Yeah. Chris, the drainage computations that you did, were those done with assuming the structures that would be built there? In other words, when you're calculating runoff, are you incorporating what you anticipate being built there for your computations?
That is a good question. I'm I'm trying to pull it up quickly to look at that. Because really what we just went for the subdivision and for the CAM application associated with that because there was a private road. The only reason we showed the houses was because engineering had asked us to show the houses. But I'm gonna try to look while I'm talking to you to see if there's anything in there to indicate. I do know we would have to come back for the houses for that approval, and that would certainly show it.
Chris, I think the point here too is that I did see the layout of the property, and there's going to be two very large tracts of land that you plan to, I guess, put some subsurface collection system in place. The question is, would the size of those collection systems be accommodating for the size facilities that you plan to put in?
Yeah, they were. You know what? Now I'm looking at it here. It does show. I'm looking at the drainage report, and it shows 2 houses, an alley driveway, a driveway to both lots, because there's the private road which takes you to the, beginning of the lots, but then there's a driveway connecting obviously to the house for each of them. So it took that into account, and then the lawn area. So yeah, it took all of that into account. I could see in the drainage report here.
I would just say, John, just the proposal to subdivide the property wouldn't be of interest to the Harbor Commission, or you wouldn't be expected to have an adverse impact. It would be the development that would take place afterwards.
Right. Well, so, again, we have no plan of the application moving forward. Right.
So if it was just this, if we're just commenting on the subdivision, my thought would be to consider is just to have no objection to it moving forward.
Right.
If it was a development plan and the applicant could attest that with the stormwater management measures that the stormwater conditions would be improved after the development from existing conditions, then we would find that consistent with the plan because there would be a demonstrated improvement. But if we're just asked to comment on the subdivision, I think it would be just to have no objection. But that's my thought.
I agree.
Someone can think of an adverse impact on the harbor that would be caused by the actual subdivision.
The only caveat to that, I think, Commissioner, is just that the subdivision requires the private road. So, normally if I would come in for a 2-lot subdivision, it would just be boom, straight split, and there wouldn't be any type of real structures proposed. With this one, there is a private road that's approved in connection with the subdivision. So you are getting some paving, obviously, with just the subdivision application.
So with a subdivision application, you would anticipate that there'll be additional impervious surfaces that we would be concerned about, but we would want to see the final development plans before making a comment on that. That's just my thought from listening to what Chris is presenting.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any comments? Chris?
Well, I have one thought was, if we look at it in the future, will we be reviewing 2 different applications for 2 different lots? Or would it be one approval? Because especially for the drainage report, each lot, if it's impervious area before, impervious area after.
I think legally at that point we would have to submit them as separate applications because the lots will have been split. So I think they will come as separate applications, but our intent is to bring them together because we would obviously want to do this all at the same time with the private road, with the construction of the private road, and then the construction of both the houses. But I think legally we would be required to have them be a separate application for each lot.
Well, then let's make a proposal. And I'd suggest a proposal of that. Again, we have no objection to the application moving forward for maintaining the subdivision of that property, and that we will await certainly further applications regarding to the building and construction of and stormwater runoff through the subsequent properties in a later application.
I think that's perfect. Thank you.
And the commissioners have any other comment? Matt?
No, do you need a second on that, John, or was that actually?
Yeah, no, I will need a second on that, certainly.
I'll take a second. I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye. All right. All right, so far we're moving forward here. We have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. We have another application, another CAM application at 121 Old Saugatuck Road. It's a CAM application by Andy Semelides. It's from Land Tech as the applicant agent. The applicant proposes to replace the current residential structure with a new 4-bedroom single-family resident. The property is adjacent to the shorefront and tidal wetlands, and no disturbances on those areas are proposed. The proposed stormwater drainage system will direct roof runoff to subsurface galleries for, again, water percolation into the ground. And the current, actually they have a current septic system there, which will be replaced. Is someone here from that applicant?
Andy Semelides.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Andy Semelides, for the record, principal and professional engineer with Land Tech out of Westport. Just going to share my screen really quick and run you through this. So the site had, I would say, was recently demolished, an existing single-family residence with a driveway, Old Saugatuck Road here at the bottom of the page, the tidal creek at the top of the page, and the existing septic was in the front of the house. The drainage from the driveway sheet flowed out into Old Saugatuck Road, and the roof had no roof gutters, so a portion of it went out into the lagoon in the rear, and a portion sheet flowed over grass and driveway areas out into Old Saugatuck Road with untreated. Again, the existing septic was in the front portion of this property. There's an existing seawall along the rear of the property, some tidal wetlands in this vicinity, and then another seawall that continues. The proposal is to demolish the house and build a new FEMA compliant residence. The entire property is within AE 13 flood zone, and the first floor will be 2 feet above that. You can see here where the existing septic was, these lines under here that are grayed out. The new septic will be again in the front of the property, which with discharges and flow patterns out towards Old Saugatuck Road. That new septic system has been approved by the health department. The roof leaders of the new residence will be captured and then piped underground to a new underground detention system, 9 Coltex in the rear there that will typically when you're on the coast, you're mostly concerned about water quality, but this actually reduces storm events up to the 100-year storm and the water quality volume of all new impervious surfaces. So we've gone above and beyond, I think, even the requirements of a coastal property, partly due to what you've been seeing with some of these storm events as of late and increasing in runoff. So that was the purpose of kind of creating something even more substantial here. And I'm, happy to answer any questions.
Andy, just from my personal information, how do they handle a septic system that's certainly in such a floodplain zone such as that? Is there any? Yeah,
there's no real special requirements. It's like your typical septic. If you were upland or out of a flood zone, truthfully, it's handled the same way.
Okay.
The only thing you do is really with the tanks, to prevent them from floating out when they're empty with high groundwater potential, they anchor them down to a pad. They kind of anchor them into the ground. That's the only real difference. The gallery is really the same.
Same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, John. It would still have to perk, which the health department has to see. So
I'm sorry, Chris. I didn't hear you.
Well, I had my septic checked at like elevation 8, and it has to the ground still has to perk. They still dig the hole to make sure water doesn't inflow. And the health department signs off on that. So that's, you couldn't do it in an absolute, like at ground, if you couldn't do it at the water table, it wouldn't pass.
This is certainly a fill system. So it does sit up higher to create that necessary separating distance from the groundwater.
And as far as the proximity near tidal wetlands, there's no issues with that with regard to DEP.
None. Yeah.
And so the flood. So any other comments from the commissioners?
Quick question: Is that those break walls? Is there water there at high water?
Say that again. These seawalls?
Yeah.
Yeah. The mean high water is at the face of the wall and then cuts across here, where there's like these tidal wetlands, and then continues across the face of the seawall.
Okay. And what's the depth of that? Is that a cistern, or what's the?
This one here?
Yeah.
So that is the shallow Coltex. They're the Coltec 100. So they're only 12 inches deep and with 6 inches of crushed stone above and below them. So they're very shallow system, the shallowest they make in this vicinity. So, for potential high groundwater, to your point, yes, the system is situated as high as it can be.
Any other comments?
Hey, John.
Jeff?
On the drainage report, you state that the proposed project will comply with the applicable rules. But does that mean, but I have the same question, asked the same question as with the previous applicant. Can you attest that the stormwater conditions will be improved over existing conditions following your project? Or are you just capturing the added runoff? And I think that's the difference between the commission finding a project like this consistent with the harbor management plan or just having no objection.
Sure. So we are reducing the flows from what's existing up to the 100-year storm. So we're exceeding what's required by the Norwalk Drainage Manual. We are also capturing that 1 inch of runoff that's typically required off new impervious surfaces and infiltrating it back into the ground. The existing impervious surfaces is like 3,200 square feet. We're proposing about 3,800. So it's about 600 square feet more of impervious surfaces. But because there was no pre-treatment and we're capturing and treating, the entire roof area, we are reducing more than just that 600 square feet to answer your question. So, when you're comparing existing to proposed, it's a huge improvement.
Well, then I think that would lead to the commission's,
yes,
based on the information that you provided, that this will result in an improvement over existing conditions. The commission would find this proposal consistent with the plan.
Right. Yes. So under those circumstances, any other further comment the commissioners make? Well, I'd like to make a proposal that we have find the application to consistent with the harbor management plan, and then with the idea that we support implementation for runoff reduction and low impact development practices and for stormwater management, and that again the applicant should employ appropriate best management practices during construction at 121 Old Saugatuck Road prior to and during, including the work that's going to be completed. Any other comments that the commissioners like to make before we can make them? I'd like to put forth that as a proposal for the application, that we find the application consistent with the harbor management plan, with our comments regarding supporting stormwater runoff, the impacts of stormwater runoff, and the reduction of runoff and low impact development practices that for this application.
And could we just mention also during the construction process, just because that is so sensitive in that area?
I'm sorry, Matt. You
just want to just add on to our amendment. There is just during the construction process, due to the sensitivity of that wetlands and estuary space, which it abuts to.
Okay, so that again, the comment that the applicant employed best management practices during construction to ensure that the proposed work, including removal of any debris, does not cause any significant adverse impact on environmental quality, including water quality in Norwalk Harbor. So that statement.
Perfect.
All right. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right, and all is in favor of that proposal? Aye. Aye. No. Proposal. Opposed? Okay, fine. Okay, moving on. We have the last application here that we have is 1 Cemetery Street. It's a CAM application by Mill Pond Holdings. The applicant proposes to redevelop the property located at 1 Cemetery Street in Norwalk. The site is in the East Norwalk Village District, and within the special flood hazard zone area as established by FEMA. The redevelopment includes the demolition of the existing bank. There's an old Wells Fargo bank there, and construction of a 6-story, which I didn't understand that, of a 6-story mixed-use structure with covered parking and rooftop courtyard, a 2-story multifamily residential building, public access improvements to the Mill Pond and associated site improvements are being proposed. 77 residential units, 2,800 square feet of active retail floor space, and 27 square foot of office space are also planned. The applicant proposes to decrease the impervious coverage by approximately 0.02 acres or 800 square feet. And they talk about the stormwater quality is proposed to be improved as compared to existing conditions. They plan to use the use of oil grit separators proposed prior to discharging into the sanitary sewer system. And we have applicants here
Yes,
who
sir.
plan to address that. Oh.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Pinto and commissioners. Adam Blank, live here in Norwalk. I'm the attorney on the project at One Cemetery. Colin Grothier with Bruce Beinfield Architecture is also on the Zoom, and Matt Edwardson for the developer, property owner is on with us. I'll give you an overview, and then Colin and Matt, if necessary, can clean up what I've left off, and hopefully we can answer any questions you have. Let me just start by saying it's a 3.5-story structure, not a 6-story structure.
Well, that's not what the application said, Adam. It said 6 stories in there.
The original engineering report had a typo for 6 stories.
Well, there's a typo in several areas then.
Yeah, it's been cleaned out now in the current version. And all of the plans have always been 3.5-story.
Well, that was the question I had. I mean, I said I saw 6 stories at several locations. That was by the application by Redness and Mead.
Yes, that was the drainage.
It was in several sites in that entire application that I saw, and I couldn't understand the 6 stories was partly contraindicated to what they were planning to develop use in that particular area.
Yes, so you can see. I think you can see my screen now, and it's now bolded, and all of the references are.
Okay, that's not what I received. Okay,
apologies.
No, that's all right.
So I'll just run through it as sort of quickly for you, and try to cut off some of the questions you have. So this is the site here at One Cemetery Street. You're all familiar in East Norwalk as you come down East Avenue around the cemetery. The Wells Fargo Bank is currently there. It's on Mill Pond, and as I sort of zoom in, so you can really sort of see, you've got Fenwick Place, and this is the city's property here. And then this is actually a lot that the city owns. So we touch up on the pond for what's probably 10 feet in width here. It's a very, very small area. And there's a city easement where the city runs its drainage through our site, and it discharges here. There's maybe a 4 or 5 foot bulkhead or retaining wall that's right here that discharges. And this is actually a small area of inland wetlands. So we are going in front of the Conservation Office for inland wetland permit and approval, as well as for you folks for Mill Pond. The development plan, again, I'm just showing you the landscape plan. One building over here off by Gregory, 1 story, that's retail office on the first floor and 3 units above. The larger structure here has got 74 units of housing with some retail over here and some amenity space for the residents over here. The existing structure, that Wells Fargo Bank here, is not FEMA compliant. Under the current regs, it's too low. So we're obviously going to be putting in a FEMA compliant structure, which I think is a benefit under the harbor management plan. The current parking, I can kind of show you this right here. It's a poor angle, but this is the edge of the parking lot. This is that sort of bulkhead here with Mill Pond just below. So you've got about 6 feet between the edge of the asphalt and Mill Pond. Under our plans, we're going to pull that back 30 to 40 feet from Mill Pond and get rid of all the impervious surface that's up here. Landscape it, include a rain garden here and another rain garden up over here, and then some traditional stormwater management as well on site. But so we do have, as mentioned, a decrease in pervious surfaces by about 820 feet. Currently, it's basically an asphalt site with the water draining all this way. There are a couple of storm drains on site. There's no real oil and water separator. And so we are going to be significantly increasing the water quality. with the retention system that's proposed on site. So then, and I will tell you that on the harbor management plan, there is one reference actually to Mill Pond, one specific reference, which says that all feasible measures to reduce and avoid the introduction of non-point source pollution and excessive siltation in the East Norwalk Basin from the East Norwalk Mill Pond should be encouraged and supported, which is exactly what we're doing here. We're decreasing it. We're decreasing non-point source pollution and siltation. Under the current site, there's no access to Mill Pond or public viewing at all. We're proposing public access through a walkway here, as well as out to East Avenue. We are in discussions with the city about potentially moving the pathway closer to the water for a better viewing advantage for the public, which is something that zoning wants. It would still be behind the retaining wall here, but it may actually move down a little bit further. The city, as I mentioned, the city's got this landlocked piece right here. We've agreed to give the city an easement and access both through here and this way, which is ADA compliant, to give them access to the site so that they can make it a smaller little park or with some potential with Mill Pond. We're not actually proposing the work, but we're proposing to get them access to the city-owned piece. We're also in discussions, although nothing's been finalized yet, so I'm not promising anything, but we've started talking with the city as well about where Fenwick ends, potentially fixing up that end, which is again off of our site, to provide viewing or access to Mill Pond from the end of Fenwick. In the harbor management plan, it actually, one of your goals is to increase public access, including passive uses, viewing, and improved access from city-owned parcels and street ends, which again, this project will help to meet, as well as the water quality enhancements, which is in the plan, providing pedestrian access to the waterfront, and bringing, for public health and safety, bringing in a FEMA compliant structure where there historically has been none. I think that's my sort of 5-minute overview. Colin, and we can take questions now, and then Colin may want to.
John, just a question on what you presented, Adam. With your public access, you had looked like a walkway and an observation area to the south, but that looked like it's on the city property.
So there's a couple different things going on. We had proposed a closer to the building, a public walkway here, this is looking out over landscaping into Mill Pond.
Adam, that rain garden and the lower section there, where it says rain garden, is that on city property or your property?
That's our property. The grayed area is our property here.
Okay.
In discussions with the city, this zone does not require public access. Some zones on these types of applications, you're required to provide public access. Not in our zone. It's a voluntary effort by the property owner. But we've in talking with the staff for planning and zoning, it's been suggested that it might be better to try to bring this down further, potentially slide the rain garden over. We're still going to keep it, but it may have to be moved slightly if we bring access straight down to here as opposed to where it was originally proposed. This section here.
That's city property?
That's what I was asking about.
Yeah, so this section is city property, and we've agreed to work with the city on helping come up with some ideas that might work for that parcel. We've agreed that we're going to give them an easement so that there's actually access. Right now it can't be used, to give them access so it can be used. And we may even contribute financially towards it. but we are not proposing it. So city parcel conceptual only, improvement by others. We're not proposing to do that work.
Matt here with Spinnaker. I just clarify that that's not part of this application, and I presume, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, if the city moves forward with that project, they would be back in front of the Harbor Commission with an application.
And it looks like that property may be below the coastal jurisdiction line, which would require which would require deep permits for any structures on that. But I didn't see that. But.
Yeah, and so we've sort of not gotten involved in what the city would need to do to realize that as a park or a public access. Just that we're going to be as cooperative as we can.
Can you show us where the drainage easement is for that box culvert that runs under the whole property?
Yeah. So this right here, this is the drainage easement here. And that comes out right in there at the mill pond.
Right.
So
that's a fairly large structure, isn't it? Like 5 foot square or something, like 5 foot by 5 foot.
I don't know the dimensions. I don't know.
Yeah, that pipe there, Chris, is quite. I think it's about a good 3, maybe
4 foot diameter pipe.
4 foot diameter pipe there that
coming from the bridge.
Coming from actually underneath. I guess down from Strawberry Avenue. It used to go underneath Vanderbilt area. So underneath Vanderbilt, underneath that, well, we used to be Roger Ludlow's school, and then directly across there. And there's also a drainage system that comes down off of Emerson Street. That's
right. That's right, John.
From the Winfield Court area, actually from drainage from Winfield Street, actually drains down into that area as well.
Yeah, there's still open flow by the Vanderbilt property and where it goes into Metro North, and then this I believe it's a box, but it could be.
Now, if you look at the redness from Mead report, they call it a 6 foot wide or 6 foot high, 8 foot wide box culvert.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And it runs under part of that Cemetery East Road too, and then through that property.
Yeah, that's a very big drainage area that goes right down into Mill Pond. Yeah,
and the easement technically allowed us to build over that that drainage area, but we decided to avoid that because we didn't want to get into the discussion of what kind of vertical clearances we would need for access and repairs. So that's kind of why the property is separated and has 2 different buildings on it.
Is the property, Adam, is the property located again within the flood zone, 100-year flood zone as far as the flooding?
It's in the AE.
Yeah, and I think a portion of it closer to East Avenue might be X, A and X.
Hey, Jeff.
Just a couple of things. Are you asking for a change in zone to accommate this?
No, this complies with the zoning.
And what's the residential? What's the existing residential density then? You're not proposing an increase in the existing residential density.
We're not even proposing to max out under the existing density rules.
Well, I think that's a significant part of the discussion about this. We've been, the city is undergoing or is ongoing a study of the waterfront industrial zones, including the area along Water Street. And we're talking with Deep about Deep's response to proposals that would increase residential density in the coastal floodplain. So their Deep's position has been, and it's a formal position that's been put forth in Stamford and Stratford and New Haven, that they found that proposals that would increase residential density in the coastal floodplain are inconsistent with the Coastal Management Act. But what you're saying though is you're not proposing an increase. This is something that's allowed now, and you're not proposing to go to the maximum amount that would be allowable now. I think that's a significant consideration when we review that in our review of this.
Right. So I believe
if you were proposing to increase the residential density, the Harbor Management Plan supports the Coastal Management Act and its application to guide land use. And if DEEP was to find that your proposal was inconsistent with the Coastal Management Act because it increases the density in the floodplain, I think we'd have to we wouldn't be able to make a favorable recommendation. But you're not proposing the change. I think that's, that's something significant to think about.
Yeah, zoning based on the size of the lot, it would be via special permit, but allows up to 87 units on this parcel, and we're proposing about 10 units less.
I see.
Oh,
could I share my screen just for a moment, because I have a photograph I took last year that might be of interest.
It's Amelia. There.
Amelia.
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen.
Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can do this. Yes. Can you see this photograph?
Yes, Jeff. No, it hasn't appeared yet, Jeff. There we are.
All right. So this is from 2021 that I took, which has a pretty good view of the property now. So that's pretty much entirely impervious surface. So what you're saying is you're going to add pervious surfaces, and you're going to make an improvement in the runoff from here.
That's correct.
Well, I changed my opinion on this now with the understanding that you're not proposing to increase what's allowable now, and that you would build to FEMA standards, and that you would improve the existing surface runoff conditions. Yeah, I have a different opinion of this now than I did, before the meeting. Because I thought you were proposing to increase the density here that's allowable.
No, not that's allowable. Obviously, there's gonna be people living there, and currently it's a bank, but
that aren't there now. Yeah, that's the other interesting part. Have you got comments back? Has Planning and Zoning got any comments back from DEEP yet on this? It says a coastal site plan review. They would have referred it to DEEP for comments.
Yeah, I have not seen any comments back yet.
And then when is the hearing, Adam, on this? Has that been scheduled?
The hearing date hasn't been scheduled. We need our inland wetlands approval and first, and then the hearing will be scheduled.
I'm wondering if we should wait to hear what DEEP has to say about this, but and whether there would be time to do that before the hearing. Those are my comments.
That I don't know, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know either.
We could certainly make no objection to the project moving forward. It is, and certainly wait further comment from. But
as of right now, as of right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
They can build what they're proposing. They're not asking for a change. And
that's correct. Yeah. And all the appropriate measures as far as stormwater runoff and proper water treatment are in place, certainly for consideration. Especially in this very environmental sensitive areas such as Mill Pond.
And we are providing public access, which is part of the harbor management plan.
Right.
John, I had two comments, especially being local to where I'm at. Right now, it is a giant parking lot, and you really have no control over that drainage and the catch basins, so to speak, that are on the western edge of that property as they border up against the mill pond. It's not really where we want a property of that size to be. So I do look at it as a positive from a harbor management perspective, considering they're going to be using all of the FEMA guidelines, and also looking, after DEEP and Army Corps and everyone else has their 2 cents, because there are some very sensitive areas in that back, bird watching areas and recreational spaces in the old mill pond area right there. But to your point, Jeff, I think it is actually an upgrade to the space in terms of from a water quality and a runoff perspective.
Yeah, agree.
The only question or concern was, were there any sewer related questions or concerns by adding that much from an existing 1.5 story bank unit that has 3 to 5 employees in it on a daily basis to a couple hundred people. That's just my assumption on what the total residency would be. So, you know, I think it's a positive for the area in terms of coastal management. But I guess that was my only question.
Adam, I think they did make comment, and maybe you could probably reinforce that with regard to the use of the sewer system there as far as the drainage. I think you did have a report in there regarding effluent going toward the sewage treatment plant, you know, from that location, I believe.
Yeah, Adam, I can take it. So
Sure.
the readiness report does do that analysis. They work closely with WPCA,
right,
and got some kind of existing volumes in the system around the site. And based on the residential, demands or loads that we'll be putting on the system, the infrastructure in the area still operates between 28% and 62% of capacity. So there should be sufficient capacity. And I think the calculation is that we're adding, 0.12 kind of cubic feet per second to the system.
Yeah, I thought I saw that. Yeah. So under the circumstances, any further comment?
We also say, though, we reserve the right to make additional comments.
Additional comment later.
When we hear from the DEP and
that's correct.
And what's the timing on that, Jeff? When do we get to hear from DEP?
I don't know.
We don't know.
The planning and zoning, since this is a coastal site plan review, it's referred to DEP for comments with respect to the Coastal Management Act. So I don't know what the status is of DEP. They would be required to get comments back before the public hearing on this.
But they're not required to give comments back. So it's up to them. They usually do, but
if their comments were to be considered, they would have to be before the public hearing. If they were to provide comments, or else they would have really no value. But based on what we're hearing, I don't think that there would be any objection to this, this moving forward. And we would make note that we think that this is an improvement with respect to water quality conditions in the harbor. And we're also making clear that it's our understanding that this is not requesting an increase in currently allowable residential density, because we don't want to set a precedent for development in other locations, and that we would reserve the right to make a final comment with respect to the plan if prior to the public hearing.
Right. Further information comes forward. All right. We're going to make a motion to that.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to that, and with reserved, discussion after the DEP comment.
I'll second that.
All right. Okay. All's in favor of that?
Aye.
And I. All right, move forward with that. Great. We'll get a letter out very quickly on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, I got a couple other things as far as our standing action items that I have listed on the application, application review. I just wanted to make mention that we did submit to the U.S. Coast Guard our recommendations regarding their public comment issues. We did send something to them with regard to the major concerns that we had with regard to vessel relocation issue that we've had in correlation and coordination with the harbor master and the local emergency services comment that we had, and then also barge mooring area concerns that we had. We did send them up a recommendation that the placement of vessels be under the jurisdiction of the harbor master, but I think we still have an issue with that. All right, and yeah, Jeff.
Yeah. Is this the time on the agenda to discuss this?
Well, that's just, I put that as far as this is further comment with regard to, again, part of our application review, what we submitted, basically.
Yeah, you're talking about the Corps of Engineers. We had previously
Corps of Engineers, right? The proposal that we made. I thought this might be a good time to maybe bring those issues up.
I have something I wanted to say. If it's the time to say.
Yes, I think this is because this deals with our, again, part of that application, the application review and the response that we made.
All right. Well, as you know, also we don't know the status of the Coast Guard permit or the Corps of Engineers permit or the status of their action on this yet.
No.
And we've also inquired of DEEP as to any information on the status of the Eversource proposal. And Deep said they have nothing to report on that. They haven't heard from Eversource. But my, I guess this is sort of a personal thing, but I bring it up for discussion. The Deep permit was issued, and it was issued following a 107-page document that was issued by the hearing officer as a result of the public hearing. And as you know, we spent 7 years reviewing this project, and I think we did a pretty good job of thoughtfully presenting comments and concerns, which were not addressed in any substantial way in the hearing officer's comments. They weren't even stated what the comments were, except in the most general terms and in one paragraph. And it summed up that the draft permit appropriately addresses the concerns of the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission. And I think that we should, my opinion is that we should respond to that and express our concern that the comments were not substantially identified or addressed. And one of the comments that we made, I know we talked about the vessel relocation and the monitoring and water dependent uses and so forth. But the other comment, one of the comments that we made is that the Deep permit authorizes the placement of moorings for DOT for both work vessels, the scows and the construction vessels, as well as support vessels. And that the entire south anchorage of the federal anchorage would be used by DOT for the scows and the work barges. But the general statutes and the Harbor Management Commission's rules and regulations, beginning with the general statutes, say that no mooring shall be placed in the harbor without a permit from the harbor master. And then there's another section of the statute that says the harbor master may station all vessels in the harbor. Now, those statutes don't make any distinction between commercial and recreational vessels. And what we understood in talking with Deep in the course of their review of the permit, and this was informally, but they said that they were of the opinion, or they were working towards the opinion, that the harbor master didn't have authority over commercial vessels. And that's clearly at odds with the clear language of the statute. And so my thought was that has to be challenged in some way, because that leads to excursion vessels or fishing vessels, or even the permits that are issued to private clubs, which are commercial permits. So Deep is arguing that if they give, or they seem to be arguing, this wasn't addressed. We asked the hearing officer to address this, but she didn't even identify it as a question. So are they overlooking the harbor master's authority, or are they saying the harbor master has no authority? And I think that question is something that deserves a letter of inquiry to the Attorney General's office. Otherwise we're going down the wrong, a bad path.
I think we should preface it too, Jeff. The reason why the hearing officer did not include any of our statements and comments was based on that Greenwich decision.
Right at the beginning of her one paragraph,
she negated any.
Yes, John, but she said that the Harbor Commission's comments would be treated just like general public comments. And she went on at some length to address the comments made by the people who were concerned with the use of Manresa Island, and made a point of trying to respond to those comments. But she made no attempt to respond to the Harbor Commission's comments.
None whatsoever.
Because
we do not have any special interest in that. She clearly stated that.
Yeah. So the mooring question, I think, is really immediately relevant. And maybe the harbor master should contact DOT and say, it's not now. And if I can share my screen, if you don't mind, one more time, Amelia. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can do this. I went through some of my photos and tried to zoom in, but this is part of, you can see where the anchorage goes here. And then it goes up into East Norwalk. So this is half of the anchorage, but this area here would be taken up by the commercial barge, the commercial vessels of the DOT. So
That's where we just put the new transient moorings in that.
right, but my point is, are there? I'm assuming these boats, recreational boats, are still moored here. That the DEP permit would displace existing mooring permit holders who have valid permits. So that's another issue with this. And just an example of another issue. The bulkhead at 68 Water Street, which DEP has now given approval to DOT to build a bulkhead along 68 Water Street and 90 Water Street. And we asked, what is the DEP policy to issue a permit or review a permit application from an applicant who doesn't own the property that would be affected and doesn't have the permission of the property owner? So we got no response to that. And now we know that the owner of 68 Water Street is still applying for a permit from DEP to build a bulkhead of their own, which is in a little bit farther out into the harbor than the DOT. So that's another example of a question we asked that we didn't get any answer to. But the mooring related question and the authority of the harbor master, I think is something to immediately request. And whether the Attorney General's office will even respond to that is another question, because that the Attorney General's office represented the DEP in the public hearing process.
Well, also that letter was very concerning too with regard to Grzlinski's comment to what's his name, the applicant for 68 Water Street under Mr. DiNardo. Schleiner, Schneer, I forget. That's not Schneerline, but
no, I know it's
Shiner. Something's like. But anyway, he apparently Grzlinski requested that he provide a response to what they plan to do, and he has not done that yet. And then Grzlinski was planning to apply for put forth a notice of non-compliance.
If he doesn't respond, but they're But they're reviewing a permit application for the same property that they've already issued a permit to. What would they do? Issue two permits?
That's the point. Yeah,
that's not the immediate issue. I mean, so my thought was that, or my suggestion is that the commission agreed to do two things. One is to write to the Attorney General for clarification of the harbor master's authority to station all vessels in Norwalk Harbor, as the statute says, and that no vessel, whether it's a recreational or commercial, can be placed in the harbor without a permit from the harbor master. And then also write to the hearing officer to express our concerns that the comments of the commission weren't identified, let alone addressed, were not identified in any substantial or significant way.
It would be a point of clarification to the Attorney General's office. I
don't know that we'll get a response.
I guess we need a response, Jeff. We need a response, or else it's for naught.
Well, the other part of it is does Bruce send a letter to?
Well, that was the other thing too, because
now you must apply for a permit from the.
I would have no problem of getting Mr. Scanlon involved, with that, because he pointed, and what their opinion is from the governor's office.
And what do we do about the recreational vessels that would be displaced by the?
Well, that would set up a can of worms now, because then the mooring fields would say, hey, do we pay anything to the Harbor Commission as for those mooring locations?
The other part
they've already paid.
I know.
No, it's a year.
It's an issue.
Year to year. Oh.
Hey, what, Jeff? I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. It's on a year-to-year basis. So each permit. So it's a year. So hurry up, get your permit in, and say, there's 50 permits already issued. But I agree with Jeff saying that the Attorney General we need to reach out to, or the harbor master.
I think we should start with a letter of clarification. Can you please clarify the state statutes? Because again, they might go back to the DEP and say, hey, look, we've got this issue that would basically affect you in the long run, because the DEP wants clearly to run roughshod over any jurisdiction that the harbor master has. That was made clear to us about several years ago, where they talked about that they can overrule a harbor master's authority if they so desire. That was mentioned.
And their lack of response too, John. I mean, it's just been palpable for the last like 3 years now. I mean, how many letters have we written and copied the mayor and the common council and everybody else?
Well,
and you know, everything that Jeff is saying here is so true. At the end of the day, whether it was Scully or, you know, whoever the harbor master is, they're kind of muting them and giving them no say over anything. And what's going to happen when January 1st, all of a sudden, they move those moorings or they put in their own moorings?
That's what I'm saying.
We have no...
the Connecticut statutes, to me, read very clearly. But again, like Jeff pointed out, doesn't specify commercial versus recreation. But they said all vessels.
I think we have to have that be a clear response and with a due date, because it doesn't seem like anyone's responding to us about anything really.
Yeah.
What jurisdiction does the Coast Guard and the Army Corps have over that? Not over the bridge permit and everything they have to go through there, but in terms of the anchorage area, in terms of the federal navigate, it has a federal status, right? The anchorage.
It's a federally designated anchorage basin, designated by Congress, and it has to be open to all on equal terms and it's managed by the Harbor Management Commission according to the rules and regulations of the commission.
We're saying the state statute gives the harbor master authority, but does the Army Corps regulations also give who do they give the authority to manage the anchorage to?
The Harbor Commission is responsible for managing the anchorage, and that's something in the harbor management plan. So as long as it's managed under the open.
Well, that's our document. But does the Army Corps actually have a
statement regarding specifically the harbor master has authority to?
Yeah, we're trying to find a hook to hang our hat on.
Yes.
I think the hook to hang our hat on is the state statute.
Yeah, but if the Attorney General says no, it's not, then we have no hook.
Then we have no hook, and then that's the end of it. But that affects not just Norwalk; it affects every other town as well.
Well, what I'm saying is there a federal angle here?
We've made the same comment that we made to the DEP. We've made to the federal government, which of course isn't responsive or doesn't have to be to state statutes but the federal government also has to issue a commercial permit for these vessels, and that's been part of the whole thing. And whether they'll issue a commercial permit, which I think that they probably would within the anchorage, because actually that anchorage was originally designated for vessels to wait while the railroad bridge was going to be open many years ago. But we've raised the same issue with the Corps of Engineers, and we've asked in the Corps of Engineers permit that it recognizes the authority of the harbor master. We've met several times, and I wish Bruce was here, with the Coast Guard, who told us informally, verbally, that they would go by the harbor master's recommendations, because the harbor master had the local knowledge. Right. We haven't communicated with the Coast Guard now in a number of months, and the people that we dealt with a year ago or maybe even longer are no longer here.
Right. So I'm trying to remember a distinction I heard once. The Coast Guard has jurisdiction on what happens on the water, right? And the Army Corps has jurisdiction over the dredging and all, right? So is it really the Coast Guard who issues a commercial permit?
The Coast Guard has never had anything to do with mooring permits. It's the federal. If there's a commercial vessel, it requires a permit, just like the private mooring fields. They have permits from the Corps of Engineers and the DEP and the harbor master for the individual boats. So the Coast Guard has to issue what's called a bridge permit.
Yes, that's part of the process.
The Army's permit has to do with structures, including moorings and dredging, and also impacts on the wetlands and the 408 process. So the 408 process is actually I don't know if that's a hook, because that's proposing to do something with a federal public works project, which the Anchorage Basin is considered to be. I'm talking a lot, but the problem was that Deep did not acknowledge the harbor master's authority or the rules and regulations for mooring in Norwalk Harbor, and they took I believe the unfounded position that they have authority over commercial moorings and the harbor master doesn't.
Well, I think it's up to us to really get something going and address that issue with the Attorney General's office. Let's craft a letter.
John, I think we're all in somewhat of an agreement here.
Yes.
Jeff made 3 points that, write the Attorney General. That's one.
Right.
Write to Deep, the official officer, the hearing officer, and have the harbor master send a letter to DOT. I think at the minimum, we should do that right now.
Yes, I agree. All right, we'll get something out. Any commissioners have any issues with that?
Well, what's their DOT? Because the DOTs, they haven't asked for anything. So what do we?
No, it's not really the DOT, not asking the DOT to do anything. We just need clarification.
No, Bruce would be telling the DOT to apply for the harbor master's mooring permits and see how they respond, to say, well, we don't need it, or that, and let's see what the reaction is. We weren't asking them for anything.
I don't think there's any value in that.
I agree with Chris. I don't think there's any value in that, Jeff. It's going to set up they're going to come at you with both guns blazing, because
right.
They're going to use that as an excuse.
No, well, I think we ought to first contact the Attorney General first.
Well, yes, whatever.
If they just, I would say, bite on the hook. If they give us no, this is what the state statutes say, then we have a little ammunition behind us to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. But if we go directly to the DOT is going to cover their tracks, just as the DEP covered their tracks with regard to disallowing the harbor master any kind of authority.
Well, and I think, I don't think there's anything we can do right now, but I think an equally important hook is to get the Corps of Engineers to acknowledge the harbor master's consultation in issuing they issue the commercial permit. But if that's done in consultation with us as a commission and the harbor master, that gives us a standing. And if the Army Corps is our ally in that, and we say we don't want it here because they're pleasure boats, that they'd have to go either out in Sheffield Harbor or somewhere else, then that, and all this may be a moot point if they're going to put everything at Manresa anyways. There's plenty of barge space there, but there's a principle here. I understand that.
If the Corps was to be our ally in this, that would be a big help, because the process that we had worked out, and it's in the harbor management plan and it's in the rules and procedures, is that when there's a commercial mooring permit involved, that involves an application to DEP and the Corps, and the Harbor Commission would comment on that, and the Harbor Commission's comments and recommendations would be factored into the DEP's permit decision, and then we would have agreement, and then the harbor master's permit would follow on after that, and based on it being worked out in the state and federal permit process. That didn't take place here. There was no consultation with the harbor master or any acknowledgement of the harbor master's authority. But yeah, if Chris is right. If the Corps was to be agreeable, then that would be a tremendous help.
All right, let's craft those letters.
Yeah.
Separate letters.
All right.
Right. Let's get it going and pick the right letter to send first.
No, but I think you're right, John. The clarity needs to come before we go after them, because it could get ugly.
Right. No, we need that. Clearly need that information from the Attorney General's office. All right. I just got one other comment, and again, I'm sure everyone is well aware right now that congratulations to Deputy Harbor Master Bruce Lavallo, who was recently appointed as Harbor Master for Norwalk. We received a notification from Governor Lamont's office. As a matter of fact, I think it was this evening, today or yesterday afternoon, for his appointment. It's obviously, since he did serve temporarily, to fulfill Greg Scully's position, and now he's officially our harbor master. So congratulations.
Get the checkbook out.
He did have a report. Did he say he sent you a report?
Yeah, I had a report. I didn't send it to everyone.
I mean, that's not my. As I said, I just wanted to send congratulations to Greg.
I do have his report. If you want me to read it.
Well, no, that's up to you, Dan. That's sort of the harbor master's report. But I wanted to just mention that in a little conversation with, and Jeff, please correct me. Previously, the commissions had the responsibility of submitting 3 names, recommendations to the position of harbor master, with triaging 1, 2, and 3, for recommendation. Now they've done away with that policy. They've done away with that policy. So now we can make a recommendation, but all they need is sort of 1 name for appointment. But I think we still have, as a commission, I think we still have a little bit of a leeway to sort of make a recommendation as to who would be put in that position.
That's a significant thing, John, because the governor is supposed to appoint the harbor master from the list provided by the Harbor Management Commission.
Right.
Now, I don't know if we talked with the governor's office, but there was never any formal letter that was sent to them. So I don't know if something, but Bruce is appointed.
Bruce is appointed, but from here on in, and that was the issue that Scanlon had mentioned, that there's no need now for 3 names to be submitted.
He said, and we have to deal with this with the deputy harbor master now.
Right.
But he said that the statute is still the same. You're required to submit 3 names. But if we go through the effort to find 3 and we can't find 3 viable candidates, and we demonstrate that we're attest that we went through the effort to try to find 3 candidates and couldn't, then they can appoint with, from a list of less than 3.
Yeah. Well, Bruce made a recommendation to me, and I'll wait for him to. He had suggested someone that he would like to work with, who's a boater, in Norwalk here, and certainly a long-established boater in Norwalk who we can work with as a deputy harbor master if we want to entertain a nomination from him.
Because even if we had 3 names, if you identify the preferred candidate of the 3, then the governor is always appointed.
Right. So I suggest Bruce get into contact with nominations committee, and we can put that forward if we wanted to move forward with a deputy harbor master. Anyway, well, that's all the comment and issues that I have here under application review, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I think for the minutes, I will send John Crispo, Harbor Master Lavallo's that he sent me and a spreadsheet, and that'll be in the minutes instead of me reading it. If that's all right with everyone.
It's fine.
Yes.
So John, is that good? John Crispo, is that okay with you? If I send you his report?
Of course.
Okay. Next, under chairman's report, I do not have a chairman's report. So under staff reports, we talked about the harbor master's report, which will go into the minutes. Jeff, do you have anything?
We submitted a grant application to the Connecticut Port Authority for a study of public access opportunities through the selected street ends. And we should know whether that's accepted by August 16th, which is the next meeting of the Connecticut Port Authority. And the plan is that they would vote on acceptance of the grant applications at that time. And then subsequent to, I guess, the last meeting, the city heard back from the Corps of Engineers about the city plans to make improvements to the marina in the East Norwalk Basin. And the Corps agreed to allow the city to go forward with those plans. With the understanding, though, that the marina is open to all on equal terms, meaning it's open to residents and the fee is the same. But the adjustments to the footprint, and this is what I learned from talking with the the city's engineering consultant, that the Corps thinks that this will be it's a public facility and it will be improved, and therefore the Corps will allow the project to go forward. And that means if we can get the permits for it, and then a year from now, the plan would be to apply to the Connecticut Port Authority for the funds needed to construct the marina.
Was there also discussion, Jeff, about the police area moving over to that space, or is that completely
we haven't had
disconnected?
Any discussion. We have had no discussions about that, Matt, that I've heard. I mean, several years ago, we talked about evaluating the feasibility of the police base moving to different locations, and whether we could get money from the Port Authority to study those different locations, but that hasn't been discussed since.
Yeah, I want to say it was like the fall or the winter of 2021 that we were talking about that, and then all of a sudden at the very next meeting, someone came and said, hey, by the way, did anyone hear from the city that they just got this new contract to redo the marina?
Well, I think the word basically came back, and I don't remember this one from fire or police. It basically said, we got it, guys. That they're handling the feasibility on their own.
Well, that was at that meeting that we had, Chris. It was at John's house that last time, right?
Yeah.
It would have been. I don't remember where that was. Yeah.
That was at John Romano's. That John Romano's. You know, when we talked about that, where apparently the it was at the fire department. Was it the fire department or the police department?
I know we were talking with Mike Silva from the police department at that point, and I think then they kind of, next thing you know, the city all of a sudden did an engineering analysis for $30,000 or $40,000 that they weren't even aware of.
Yeah. I don't know where that's going.
They're going to have less boats than what they had now, right?
It just seems like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing here.
Right.
Jeff, are you all set?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Shellfish Commission, Steve?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So we had no new business last month. We had no quorum either. The Shellfish Commission would like to offer its sincere condolences to John and his family and friends. And John, wherever you are, thank you for fighting the good fight. Eat Norwalk shellfish, and I yield back, sir.
Amen.
And maybe the city, or we can send, we did put together a tribute to John.
I will send that around, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that should be distributed to the new.
I will do that, yes.
And to others.
Good idea. Anything else, Steve? You're all set?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, and I might also say, I said I was finished, but the lawsuit or the court case in the appellate court that will affect the future of a harbor management commissions, the decision is expected before August 1st, we were told by the Greenwich town attorney, which is getting close. They've been expecting it any day.
Who's that coming from, Jeff?
That's the appellate court.
Okay.
And that's the appeal of the Superior Court judge's decision that a harbor commission has no authority to review applications for deep permits, which would make all the work we've done on the railroad bridge.
We just pack our bags and go home.
Right. I mean, what's the point?
What's the point is right.
Well, again, this hearing officer clearly made it loud and clear, believe me, about that statute. She pointed that out in her letter of recommendation to us directly.
Well, once that case is, the appellate court makes its decision, then the town of Greenwich will have to decide whether to try to appeal it to the Supreme Court. And then there'll also need to be discussion about whether there's a legislative remedy for basically to affirm what the harbor commissions have been doing ever since they were
since inception of the
which is to review applications for deep permits and make recommendations to deep.
And they went along with that, and all of a sudden rules started to change in midstream as we progressed.
Well,
John, what is there, over 100?
No, for what? Over 100? No.
In the state of Connecticut.
About 26. I think I got out 25.
Oh, 26, that's all.
28 towns, I believe, with harbor management plans. And I think that includes just one where the plan is being prepared now.
process. Yeah. Yeah. That will put everybody to rest in one single stroke, you know,
Oh.
of some ill-advised and judge.
Seems to be common these days.
It does. Anyway.
Okay. Mooring and harbor safety, I guess that's me. The committee continues to monitor and renew applications and address any concerns. We have 63 approved applications and 62 application or renewals that are under review. We received the final payment in the vessel inventory from Row 8 and Yacht Club managed fields. And I will reach out to the other two managed fields for their payment and vessel inventory. Working with the harbor master when required with any issues that he may have or we may have together. Under harbor safety, I received a email from Pete Lepak in charge of the marine unit. And he said, Owen and I have obtained courtesy of Norm Bloom 6 tall plastic and 6 skirted foam buoys to be configured for use in the harbor after consulting with the harbor master. So that's wake buoys that I believe that's what he's talking about, that we can put in the harbor. And that concludes my report.
Dennis, you received Bruce's Excel file on all the moorings?
Yes, I did.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't get a chance to look at it yet, but
Oh, okay, yeah. But he did send it around.
I knew he's done that before, and we talked about it, and I knew he was going to do that.
That was an updated version of
Right.
727, right.
Okay, Jeff, plans and recommendations?
Sure. So just
sorry,
to
I
let
missed.
everybody know,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
my fault.
All right.
Go ahead.
Still no power, so it's getting darker and darker here. So on the 28th of June, I'm a council meeting where the council approved the $3 to $5 mooring fee increase. So that's an increase of $2. So that's for all the moorings, including managed fields. I am going to follow up with the town's attorneys, see if they've contacted, and Jeff Stedman, maybe you know, they've contacted Stanford because I'm going to move forward with the per slip fee, charge fee. So I'm going to try to get some headway on that. And also, I don't know if it was discussed in the last meeting because I wasn't at the last meeting, but so I did look into the C-Flex system and floating docks system that just like Milford Harbor has, and Jeff Stedman was a key player in that too, helping out with them. So that is an option that we have, and I did get a proposal and things. It is over-engineered because they wanted to know the absolute max that we would have as far as storms and things like that, and ranges from a hurricane to a slight breeze. So, but that's about all I have. I'm going to again continue with reaching out to the town attorneys, see where we stand on moving forward with the slip fees.
As of last week, Jeff, no one had contacted the person we suggested they contact in Stanford. And then the other part of that, when looking for the money to buy the mooring tackle for visiting boaters, we learned from the Connecticut Port Authority that equipment is potentially fundable through a ship grant. But we couldn't do it this year because we don't have any location to put them, and that's partly due to the issue with the DOT moorings.
That's correct, and we do not need a permit if it's 100 square feet or less.
And we learned that too.
So a 25 by 4 or a 20 by 5 would work out. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Alan is not here. I don't know if I didn't see a financial report.
I think he did send one around.
He did, because I didn't see it.
Wait a minute.
Well, I'd look, but I don't.
Did he?
Sorry.
John, did he send that to you? John Crespo?
Let me have a look.
I'm pretty,
I think he
Just
sent a
looking now,
spreadsheet
I don't have
to
it.
all of us, right?
yes.
No.
No, Dakawala, no, there was something he recently sent around here. Let's see.
It was a Word document, but it had a spreadsheet in it.
Right.
I'm trying to pull it up.
No.
He sent an email about DACWA.com and it had a term sheet associated with it.
Wait a minute.
He sent it at 5:09 on Tuesday. Want me to put it on the screen?
Wait a minute.
I do know that he spoke regarding DACWA, and I just have to go outside. It's too dark. About DACWA, the city already has an account with DACWA for Rowayton, I believe. So, or 5 Mile River or Rowayton or somewhere. So so he also stated that it would be very easy to differentiate between the either 5 Mile River or Rowayton, wherever it was, and other city use. So it would be very simple to do that. And we already have an account. The city already has an account.
Jeff, I know he wants to move it forward. What do we need to do at this point to make that happen? Do we have prices from DACWA and all that stuff?
I don't know about that. This would be for transient moorings and possibly tying up to the Vets Park dock. Instead of having to go ahead and phone in and see if it's available, if space is available, I guess. The advantage of DACWA is that you know if it's available or not, as well as, I'm coming to Norwalk, what am I going to see? So what can I do in Norwalk? And DACWA does a pretty good job of area amenities and things like that. So I do not know what the cost is, and I think I'm sure you could charge. There is a percentage that they get, but you can charge whatever you want on, for your slip.
If we're going to approve it, I think we need a contract, and we need some numbers and whose responsibility is what is expected.
Yeah, I mean it's already in place, so I'm not even sure.
Well, we're talking about the docks, right?
Right. We need moorings or a dock before we can sell it.
Right.
Oh, correct.
We need more information.
And so I just sent the financial report that I think I received from, it was in a Word file that Alex, I just sent it up by email to everyone. All right.
Then I guess the newsletter and the website is topic of the night. Water quality, Joe and John.
Yep, thanks, Dennis. We had a meeting, and during the meeting, this was July 7th. We discussed several points. First of all, Wilson Point Cove. We had an update from both Dick and Bill. They found that the readings in Wilson Cove were a little high for bacteria, but not as bad as they were last year, and it changed with the tide. We also had Diane addressing us about the MS4 and water quality list of goals and how we can get more active, or we should get more active with development of MS4. Right now, we've passed the deadline. I submitted my personal recommendations, but we did not have a time to do it as a group. And then under new business, I had communication with Mrs. Becky from USGS in regards to their equipment. And I'm going to update it as of right now, just so you understand this did not happen with the meeting last week. I checked water temperature this week, and during the entire month of July, it kept going up and going up and going up. And off of Cove Marine, the water temperature got up as high as 79 degrees. And that's pretty warm. That's on the bottom. And on the top, the temperature did get up to 80 degrees. And that was, I think, on Sunday. But it has dropped down to about 77 degrees as of right now. As far as oxygen levels at Cove, they've been beautiful. The dissolved oxygen levels never fell below 4 parts per million. And most of the time they were above 5 parts per million. And on the surface, they were above, most of the time, 6 parts per million, and it only came down to 4 on 2 separate occasions. And that's on the surface. And on the bottom, as far as percent saturation, most of the time it was above 70 to 90% saturation. And under hot water conditions, that was excellent. And the same thing is true on the surface. So the oxygen, we're doing well. Now, the other thing, the communication with Mrs. Becky brought out was the fact that they've had trouble with their equipment off of the aquarium. And the problem is they foul, the equipment fouls. And we were getting dissolved oxygen levels below 2 parts per million. And they corrected it. And what we're seeing right now with water temperatures getting as high as 81 degrees on the surface, and I'm looking at it, and 79 degrees on the bottom, the dissolved oxygen levels are all over the place on the bottom. So I suspect their equipment is fouling, especially the dissolved oxygen sensor. And when I worked for the aquarium and I was responsible for doing that stuff, fouling was a huge obstacle. And I told Rebecca that I had to calibrate it and clean the probes every week to 2 weeks because of fouling. But they have oxygen levels on the bottom down near 0. And the fish are not dying off of there. So I have a strong suspicion it is fouling, and I'm going to be back in touch with her. She's also asked to address us about putting together a presentation on how they calibrate, how often they calibrate, and their QAPP. And I just want to get a rough idea if any of you would be interested in attending that. It would be via Zoom. Okay, Jeff.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, same here, Joe. What causes the fouling then? Is it sediment, algae growth on the electrode? What's the?
It's anything from algae to sea squirts to, I think they're attracted because there's a minor electrical charge that passes through the probes.
Yeah.
And I think some of these organisms might be stimulated by it. So they go to the probe. And there were times that, I mean, it was really pretty nasty. What I found out was the equipment I was using was YSI. They actually, in areas where there's high fouling, have a wiper that can wipe the membrane. You can set it for every half hour, every hour, whatever. And we ended up investing in that, and that helped tremendously. So I don't think she has that. You know, and that's something, it's an extra expense. So, you know, maybe USGS might feel a little bit of the government surplus. I don't know. But it's something, especially with the maritime aquarium area, they definitely have an issue with it.
It seems like a small price to pay for. You don't want faulty information. You know, you can't go to school.
Yes, yeah, but it's interesting how dramatically different. You know, if you go to that USGS site that I sent you guys a link on, if you go to that and you compare the Norwalk Harbor Cove Marina versus Norwalk Harbor Maritime Aquarium data, they are pretty different when it comes to the dissolved oxygen. And it's interesting that they are not that far apart, yet the sewage treatment plant, I'm pretty sure, has some effect on the probes near the aquarium.
Positive or negative effect?
It depends on whether you consider organisms accumulating around a probe. You know, if you're a zoologist, you think it's a wonderful thing because you're attracting life. But if you're trying to conduct science, science research, and it's fouling your equipment, it's definitely a pain in the gluteus maximus. So it's something that they have to figure out, and we have to too. I sent her an email asking if she knows if it is a fouling issue as of today, and I haven't heard back from her yet. So that's where we are. Any questions? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
We have a public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to say a few? Amelia, do we have anyone? Do you know?
Yes, Dan Cece has her hand raised, so I'm going to allow her to talk.
Okay.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Diane Cece, Olmsted Place. I'm actually speaking on behalf of the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association tonight. And I wanted to, I actually tuned in because I wanted to hear the discussion on the One Cemetery Street application. And I have some concerns over the rapid approval of this, given the size of the development that's going there. And I'm also concerned too, because I'm seeing now that the readiness and need civil site report was updated, and it was only just posted today. And there's 61 pages of that report, you might note. And I wasn't able to discern if the only change that they've submitted is the correction in the number of stories. So I'm curious as to whether or not the Harbor Commission had an opportunity to review the entire document. I'm not sure if Attorney Blank is still on, but maybe you can ask him if there's any other changes to it. I also was a little bit surprised because I think at one of the latest planning and zoning reviews that the applicant has been doing, that Mr. Kleppen had indicated that he didn't think that this parcel was considered inland wetlands where it meets Mill Pond. But now we heard from Attorney Blank that they do have to go before the Inland Wetlands Commission. And I don't know what bearing that might have on what your decision would be. And then I also wanted to note that you specifically were asking Attorney Blank about whether or not the density increased on this parcel. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. I believe the question was, were they requesting an increase to the allowed density?
Right.
I mean, obviously, there's there's a bank there now, so any dwelling would be an increase in density. But
right, and I think the question had went to whether or not it would be an increase in the amount of density that's allowed in the zone. And so Attorney Blank did answer honestly. He said it's not an increase in the allowable residential density. However, what he didn't share with you. I'm sorry, I think I'm getting some feedback here. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What he didn't share with you when you asked about if there's any change in the residential density in that zone was that this zone, I hope you recall, was just recently changed. So it's only as recently as January where the density is allowed to be as high as what they're recommending. In December, they could have only done 1 unit per every 1,650 square feet of that parcel. And what they're proposing now under the new East Avenue Village Transit Zone designation is 1 unit per approximately every 900 square feet. And so while Mr. Blank was accurate in his depiction that there's no increase in the density over what the zone allowed, I just want to make sure that you're clear that this zone is different than what it was in December of 2021. And because you had raised the issue regarding density as it pertains to, I'm not sure if it's a coastal area management or if it is through DEEP. So I may have just confused matters more, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. In December, they could have only done 1 residential unit for every 1,650 square feet. And in January, they changed that parcel. Presumably, it came before you prior to that change. And the density can be as high as 1 per every 850 square feet. And then my final question has to do with the access there for public access. We believe that it's not just a matter of the applicant granting an easement for public access. We believe that the public has the right to access there as it stands now, and that it was an oversight on behalf of city staff that actually negated that. Prior to the change to the transit zone in January, this parcel was part of the zone called neighborhood business. And you are all probably aware that the neighborhood business zone under the state statutes guaranteed public access to the waterway. When Steve Kleppen and the zoning commission changed the zone, that actually dropped out of the text. And we couldn't get clarification, or we haven't gotten clarification yet, if it was an oversight, which it appears to be, or if it was intentional to take it out of the EVTZ zone. The only parcel that would have applied to in this case actually is 1 Cemetery Street, because the EVTZ zone waterfront only is only that parcel. And then also too, you should be aware in terms of considering this also that Mr. Kleppen told the Planning and Zoning Commission that Mill Pond, just by virtue of being the pond, is not considered waterfront, and we're debating that as well. I don't know what that means in terms of what Attorney Blank was proposing to you for Fenwick Place, because he highlighted to you that the city may open that up to access to the pond, but he didn't elaborate on if he meant for viewing. And the reason why we're questioning that is in the past, the applicant has proposed access literally into the waterway by having some sort of a ramp there for kayak launches and other activities within the pond. And we would be concerned about that because of the ecosystem and the waterfowl and the wildlife that's there. And then finally, I wanted to know if the decision that you made tonight, I guess this is an administrative question, is that you made your decision, but you left it open based on feedback from the DEEP. And this is the first time we're hearing that the applicant does have to get a comment from the DEEP on this. We thought prior to that they weren't involved, so I'm glad to hear they are. But is your approval contingent only upon that? Or are you taking public comment that you can take into consideration to continue to review this, or are you done with it now, pending the DEP statement?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Our comments have always been that at the end of our responses to P&Z that the commission reserves its right to continue to review the proposed project and provide it as additional information may be provided, or it's subject to a public hearing and provide additional recommendations. So it's always left open that if there's additional information provided, that the commission will make additional comments. And I think these are good comments. I don't know if I should say this, but did we comment, John, on the proposed zone change back in December?
That I don't recall, Jeff.
And was that proposed zone change also provided to DEEP for comments?
That's a question I would have to ask Mr. Kleppen.
And
I don't think we were aware of that, by the way.
I believe we did review the East Norwalk TOD. I remember we were trying to clarify what that was. It's not First Street and that area. It was the East Avenue zone.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what DEEP's comments would have been at that time, because as I mentioned, DEEP has taken strong positions recently that increased residential density as I said, in the coastal floodplain is inconsistent with the Coastal Management Act.
But Diana's right. They recently changed that, so there was nothing.
But I'm wondering if DEEP, how DEEP may have responded back in December, when the proposal was made to increase the allowable residential density. We'll ask. We'll ask. We can still conduct research on it.
But I thought that was to increase the residential density on Van Sant Street and the parking areas in the back right along the railroad tracks.
That's
that there.
As I recall.
Nothing was mentioned that I know of at that time dealing with the Wells Fargo property.
Well, we can discuss this at the August meeting, depending on when the public hearing is on this.
John?
I will recommend Diane. I will recommend Diane that she puts this in writing, because she went through many different issues. If she should summarize them and send it to us, would be better to understand.
Is Diane still there?
No. Yes, she's here. I'm sorry. With other commissions, it's usually they get one chance to speak or not, but just want to clarify that I can allow her to talk again.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for the leeway, you guys. I appreciate it. So I'll make two clarifying points here. One is that, yes, I did rattle off a whole bunch. I was taking notes as you guys were talking. And absolutely, Mr. Crespo, I will recap these over the next couple of days and get them to you. The issue that the other commissioner was speaking about with having had TOD come before you, I know it sounds like it's a matter of semantics, but there's two different things. There's the TOD zone, which is the entire transit-oriented development zone that you probably did see. Or maybe, I'm not even sure if you saw that. But within that zone, the city of Norwalk designated the East Avenue corridor as the East Avenue Village Transit Zone. That is what then took into account the designation of the Wells Fargo parcel to now be in that zone. And that's what increased the allowable residential density under a special permit, of which this application is. And I don't think you saw that. And that's why I'm raising it, because I'm concerned after what I heard tonight that you said about DEEP not wanting an increase in residential density. So I will recap this, and then hopefully you can get some clarification from Mr. Kleppen. But just be clear that the question here is the EVTZ zone designation for the special permit.
Yeah, Diane, I think you're right, because I recall Mr. Kleppen mentioning that East Norwalk, the transit district, dealt with from Ludlow Square up to the I-95, you know, the
Highway.
bridge, highway, right. And
So
I didn't take one cemetery place as the street, as the
Right, and when those changes were
as the Ludlow,
finalized,
from the Ludlow, you know, Ludlow area.
right, and when
I'm
the
gonna
changes were
share my
finalized,
screen. Sorry to interrupt. This was discussed at the May meeting, and I'm going to share my screen with the map that we were given by. This is the East Norwalk TOD proposed zoning, and the proposed EVTZ is in gray, which included that parcel and the parcel, the blue house in the corner there too.
What was the blue, Chris?
The light blue, it says proposed to change to C. I don't know what zone C is.
residential.
That's a yeah, right. That's a residential zone. Residential, right? And
That's an office space, right?
No, not usually.
Over here, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think that's an office space. I think it's a real estate office.
That's the little one right here. The blue house is here. The Michael.
Oh, okay.
That's right. That's the facility right next to Sweet Ashley's there, in the corner.
Sweet Ashley's is here.
You're right there, yeah.
So this is from, oh, this is May 21. So this was over a year ago.
So it did include the Wells Fargo space.
Right. So this is
The,
there's a schedule that went along with it. I haven't had a chance to.
right, and what you'll see here is when they did the regulation for the EVTZ portion of that corridor is where they changed the density. If you go to the last column there, it can be as dense as 1 per 825 square feet now.
Right.
Although this applicant is coming in at 1 per 920, I think.
Right. They doubled the density, yes.
Well, this is going to obviously come down to a zoning issue, you know.
Well,
But it,
Were you saying something, Jeff? I'm sorry.
no, I lost my screen. But
Right.
but this issue of density in the floodplain is going to be significant elsewhere in the harbor, especially along Water Street.
Right.
The industrial study.
Well, that's their push. That's
And
their
we're
push.
going to have to, and the harbor management plan references the Coastal Management Act and supports the implementation of the Coastal Management Act policies with respect to land use. And now we know, and I'm repeating myself, that DEEP is on the record of finding increased density inconsistent with the Coastal Management Act, but that's an advisory comment. So DEEP's comments on these sorts of proposals, the land use proposals, are referred to DEEP for comments, but they're advisory. The city can still take a different action. And DEEP's response for a remedy would have to be to sue the city, as they did back in 1988 with the change of the Water Street zoning. But the chance of that happening now probably is not very good.
Yeah. Diane, if you're still on, you mentioned one other thing which caught my ear. It was something about talking about Mill Pond itself and whether that was a coast. What would we have said?
You can consider it
coastal. The harbor, whether that's part of the harbor or whether it's a pond. And who said what? I was trying to remember what you mentioned.
It was Steve Kleppen was trying to clarify what the designation of the pond would be. And it's my recollection, and I can check the transcript of it, that he told the Planning and Zoning Commission that wasn't considered part of the harbor, I guess, even though it feeds into it, and that it didn't contain any inland wetlands. And so I can definitely double check that for you, but it was surprising to us. So the other terminology that came into question was whether or not it was considered waterfront. And I guess there's a couple different definitions of waterfront. I think zoning has one that may be different than how the state statutes define it. But I can tell you that there are parcels along Mill Pond that from the tax assessor's point of view,
Our
have the
waterfront.
designation of waterfront, and whether they're paying a higher assessed value for that or not, I'm not sure. They may not be because those parcels are small, but you know, for what it's worth, I think everyone should get together and define what Mill Pond is. And of course, our goal is to protect it for the value of the pond itself, but also the harbor impact.
Well, thank you for that, because I mean, I don't know how that affects our jurisdiction or purview, but its title is my understanding. It's a tidal wetland. Just because there's a weir and a culvert under Seaview or First Ave Street, whatever that is there, I would certainly make an argument from an engineering point of view that it's a tidal wetland.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between high tide, low tide in there is significant. People are crabbing and fishing and birding in there all the time. So it's definitely part of the accessible harbor space.
Yeah, and it's a brackish waterway, so yeah.
It's
well, I'm sure we can argue that was not always the situation in which that road was there, and I'm sure that continued from the East Basin all the way up to the Mill Pond at one time.
Yeah, exactly, and it was just because there's a weir there, a spillway that regulates the internal tide doesn't mean it's not a tidal wetland.
That's correct.
Boy. It's tidally influenced and it's part of the Norwalk Harbor Management Area.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Mr. Kleppen seems to make his own rules, I guess. I don't know. Definitions.
I don't know if that definition affects anything that we would do in the future. We could
that I don't know.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
When I send the recap to you, I will double check the transcripts first and then get clarification as well from him. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Diane. Really appreciate your input.
Yes.
Good to see everybody. Have a great night.
You too.
You too.
Okay, the next is the approval of the minutes for June 22nd. Is this the amended minutes, if they were amended, John?
Yeah, they're amended.
They're amended, okay.
I got whatever was sent to me, and I amended and sent it over to Michelle for posting in the city's website.
Did everybody have a chance to look it over? If there's no changes or objections, somebody want to make a motion to approve them?
Motion to accept the minutes.
John, second to Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. And who wants to make a motion to adjourn?
Can I ask a procedural question here?
Sure.
So what will be our process in terms of replacing John as his seat, and as also replace and also in terms of electing a chairman for the commission?
Well, I think the seat is John, you know more than I do. I'm not sure how it happens, but it happens.
Well, we certainly make a recommendation from the commission.
Right.
And again, you are the acting chair until a new one is in its replace. However, I'll go back and look at the bylaws on that, but
you're welcome to have the job, Chris.
Well, I might put my hat in the ring. I'm just wondering what the process is.
Well, I think we should be, number one, I think it should be proactive in perhaps submitting a name that the commission would recommend to send forth to Harry and or the Common Council as a recommendation to be on the commission. I certainly, hopefully, we can get someone who is, and there was one that was mentioned that was recommended. The person did attend one of our meetings. Liz Suchy had sent a suggested name of someone who was an avid voter from the area. I think it's from your area, Chris, from, I think he lives down in your area, Chris McDonald. But I think we can take suggested names and look at their resumes and maybe make a recommendation here. I think we better move forward on that ourselves.
Sure. I'm sorry, John. Everybody froze up for a minute there. Did we say a name or something? Or were you
No, I didn't say a name. No, but Liz Suchy recommended a name, from as a person who was an avid voter and had expressed an interest. And I remember that person being at one of our meetings. And
the guy from Harborview?
Yes.
The young guy. Yeah. I reached out to him shortly after that meeting about the whole street end thing. I mean, I didn't have his. I looked him up on LinkedIn or something, and I never heard back from him. But yeah, I mean, if we have a different contact for him.
Well, no, I was just saying that we whoever we choose, I think that we better take a proactive effect on submitting names, because this is, as I said, the commission now needs, some good, solid people involved and who are knowledgeable as far as Norwalk Harbor is concerned and want to do something as far as the state is concerned. We have a lot to do, And then as far as, replacement of a chair, Dennis is certainly willing to accept that responsibility, until John, I think John's term was as of December of this year. I have to go back and look. But yeah, we get together and we choose the chair, Chris.
And we need to put people together for vice chair.
Right.
In case I can't make it for some reason, someone has to.
Yeah, nominate. But yeah, well, actually, I think I have to go back and look at the bylaws, whether, for example, John as treasurer comes into that position, or as the secretary comes into that position as the vice chair.
One of them does, yeah. I don't remember.
But
any other questions?
No. Yeah,
did we get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Jeff, second, okay. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Dennis.
Take care.
All right,
guys. Have a great week.
Hi, Chris.
God bless, John.
Not everyone.
Take care.